Hey, everybody. It's the lovely show known as the Side Angle Wrestling Podcast on the Big Fat Podcast Network. Thank you guys for tuning in yet again. We have had an episode go up recently of us recapping WrestleMania from April 7th. Check that out on either mine or Dan Brown's YouTube channels. We have those full episode up there. Intro music and all. What did you think about that, my friend?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm digging the video podcast. It is about time that the Side Angle Wrestling Podcast came to video so they can look at your face, and then I just look much more attractive afterwards.
I was about to say, I'm not gonna be the pretty one here. In my act, I even say it. I look like a retired boxing coach for a reason, and it's the way I look. And it's also booze, my friend. But yeah, that's my lovely.
And especially now that we can do it on video, I will be turning heel often, very often.
I think that's going to be definitely a thing we do is there'll be heel turns and story angles with different podcasts. I'm going to be calling people out. I don't care if they answer. That means they're chicken. I can be like Shane Douglas at WrestlePalooza 1998 and talk about Ric Flair in the ring in Georgia. It's fun. Thank you guys for coming back to the Side Angle Wrestling Podcast. I am Ray Hyclak, joined by my good friend and fellow comedian, Dan Brown. Dan, how have you been since we last spoke?
I have been very sports entertained.
Oh, have you?
I very much so.
I can say this right now when it comes to professional wrestling and when it comes to the entire idea of having professional wrestling live on television again in the Corona age. Let me tell you, Vince is definitely trying to do it right now, my friend. He is definitely. Have you seen that?
I saw it ruled today. Governor ruled it today. WWE is essential business. AEW is still up in the air, but that is the difference between pro wrestling and sports entertainment.
Yep, and that's also
or whatever AEW is.
That's a very good point. I mean, the fact that they got this license to even do anything as an essential business is crazy to me. And they were almost denied. I think they were denied in the beginning. And then Vince somehow pulled that carny magic that all wrestling promoters have to be like, come on, you want it. You know you miss wrestling. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know how he does it other than a couple of Mr. Benjamins and a few Andrew Jacksons tossed in there. And who's on the 50?
Ulysses S. Grant, sir. I was actually talking about
Hugh Grant's around there.
Hugh Grant. I want Hugh Grant. Yeah. He's everybody's favorite awkward Englishman. Who doesn't love him? But, like, if you look at this compared to, and you brought AEW up, they're still kind of not knowing what they're going to do. It's sort of interesting how Vince McMahon made this happen right also after filing bankruptcy with the XFL. That went through today, and I'm going to look over to you now, and you can give your opinion, my friend.
It's a shame that the XFL failed this time when it had nothing to do with the actual gameplay of the players, of the presentation. It's just disappointing. It's sad. I think we all kind of saw it coming. I don't know if we saw bankruptcy, but I think a lot of us saw the XFL not coming back. We know we're not getting it again in 2020. We know we're not getting 2021. Nope. 2022, we'll see. I'm not optimistic. It hurts me to say that because, you got these guys out there who are breaking their bodies for a different sport, for a chance to be a professional athlete, for a chance to keep their dream alive, and that's just one avenue gone for them now.
Yeah, that's the sad part for a lot of guys who, weren't drafted in the NFL, who didn't really make it in the NFL. They had finally a chance outside of, the embarrassment. And even though I'm a fan of it, the Arena Football League, you had an opportunity for those guys to be on television. And there were some we're in Ohio. There were a few guys who were Ohio State Buckeyes that were XFL players, and now their whole careers are over. because right now, at least, because of this virus. So they don't have and I know a lot of guys are also getting contracts. Some guys actually got signed by some teams in the NFL, which is cool. I think Minnesota, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City were on the list of those teams, which is cool. That was cool of the NFL to kind of go, yeah, these guys could be, we'll pay them to be bench players for a little while and then build them along in the league as well.
Yeah, or give them a shot. Just give them a shot.
Exactly. I mean, you do that, it's one of those almost it's the Vince McMahon, here's your opportunity to make more money than you've ever made in your life.
Can I make a note about something that happened this past week in professional wrestling?
Yes, you can.
One of my favorite women wrestlers, and Nia Jax, made her return.
Yes.
And I saw a lot of hate online for Nia Jax, which, number one, if you look at the list of people that she's injured and you look at the incidents where those people were injured, it's a two-way street. It wasn't just her. And sometimes it was a tag team match where, maybe Tamina missed catching somebody or this or that. The only person I saw that she truly hurt was Becky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
there was none of that.
Becky.
Yeah, there was none of that. You never heard her Rybacking anybody. Like, you never heard anybody doing that kind of shit with Nia Jax. Although, and I'm going to put this on myself because I'm going to did you hear what she had to say about Ronda Rousey now that we're talking about Nia Jax?
I loved it. I love what she had to say. Charlotte had to say something too. Let me pull up Charlotte's tweet really quick.
We're doing this live, folks, but at the same time, it's the lovely thing called the Side Angle Wrestling Show. While Dan is looking that up on our video, we are on the Big Fat Podcast Network. You can find that on Anchor FM with a lovely lineup of great podcasts on there as well. Don't forget to visit that. And also some big news coming from the Big Fat Podcast Network in the next coming months. We'll be rolling some stuff out. Cannot tell you exactly what it is, but we will be definitely making. I've been talking with people in the podcast, in the Big Fat Podcast Network. So just keep going, listening to us and supporting all the other great podcasts on the Big Fat Podcast Network, including us, the Side Angle Wrestling Show. And I will also be resurrecting now, since some chaos and some shit is going down in the mixed martial arts world, I will be bringing back the Big Fat Combat Show on this exact platform for Zoom and Big Fat Podnet with YouTube. That's going to be something we're going to be doing down the road.
The professional that I am was unable to find it.
Oh, we missed out. Okay.
But she essentially called out Ronda Rousey for the last 2 times that she was in the UFC cage for getting knocked out and then crying in the cage. And then she came to the WWE. She was a big deal, but right now she's not. She's a nobody right now.
No, Ronda Rousey has. I'm going to say this as a guy who loves mixed martial arts. I've been to 2 UFC events. The first one ever in Cleveland. I was here for that one, and I was also at Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Rumble Johnson 2, where Rumble Johnson retired in the ring right after the main event. And I love the sport, and I loved Ronda. I loved Ronda a lot when she was in Strikeforce, when she was murking bitches all the time because nobody knew how to deal with judo in mixed martial arts, or at least in female mixed martial arts. Now, though, after the shit she has said, and she said on Steve-O's podcast, I can't physically respect her as a fighter or as a person anymore, because now I have not only in the mixed martial arts world where she came in against Amanda Nunes, the law just got destroyed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now she's saying that fans are ungrateful. And to be honest with you, that's a Vince Russo move. Ronda, you're above that. I want you to know that. Like, I think Ronda Rousey is a little bit more above that than a Vince Russo move of, they're just ungrateful, bro. They're just ungrateful. I don't know why they didn't like Disco Inferno as the United Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, I changed the status of that title because nobody gave a shit, bro. Nobody gave a shit. And that's what fucking Ronda Rousey looked like. As far as I'm concerned, she shit on the fucking mouths. And I'll let you say something about this, Dan, but I, as a fan of hers, no more, I can finally say, fuck you, dude. Like, what are you doing? Be a grown-up about this. Rather than, and then calling it fake fighting was, you're insulting the actual company that gave you money that day. So what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird, but she's a very weird person.
Yeah.
And that can be seen on just about any interview that she actually does, where she thought somebody was asking her if she could go back in time, like literally like time travel, rather than what would you have done differently if you had you known, which was the common thing that I think everybody could have understood what the guy was asking her. She's not well educated,
No,
unfortunately. It's weird because Charles Sonnen was talking about her in some interview, and he said it. He was like, I always thought everyone was like in on the joke with Ronda, like they knew she wasn't very good, but she was the best at who was competing at the time. And then when you had people who were a lot better, it became very apparent that Ronda just couldn't keep up with these people. Yeah, and we saw that. We saw that with oh god, what was her name? Who's the person who beat her in UFC? Holly Holmes. Yeah, and we saw how Holly Holmes kicked her in the head,
and made her look like
replayed 100 times.
Dan, she made her look like a fool. She ran like she made Ronda run past her. Think about that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then her last fight too was just nothing special out of her.
No. Absolutely not. That was probably the one time where she looked like a white belt in anything was against Amanda Nunes. And I saw it live on pay-per-view. I had an ex-girlfriend with me on the couch watching this going, oh, fuck. Like, whoa. And it's honestly, I think she has a little bit more of an ego than she should. But I'm going to say this. She was an Olympian. She has all of these great credits to her name, but she doesn't use them well, in my opinion. She does not use those things well to her advantage, if you will, to really she's turned into the female Carl Lewis, where Carl Lewis had all those records, he had all the prestige and everything, but he didn't have the respect of the people anymore because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. No. And again, it's one of those things where it'll be developing as we go along. And it's one of those deals that kind of makes it seem almost interesting on the idea that this woman just lost her fucking mind. And I think it was the shin to the head that really kind of did it for her. It had to have. That spine separation in Australia had to have fucked her up. There's no way. I don't see that's a person who's been badly KO'd.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. We are in gallery mode because we are now going to talk about the subject of today's podcast, a lovely segment about probably one of the most tragic moments in the history of professional wrestling outside of any plane crash or anything. This was more of motherfucker went nuts. And to this day, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't watched a Chris Benoit match on the network outside of maybe, WrestleMania 20. Somebody put on WrestleMania 20 and it's the main event, so you can't really do anything but watch it. Where were you that day when when they were going to SmackDown and you found out that Chris Benoit, and we'll use gimmick names here too, woman and their son, where were found in their home? Where were you when you heard? Because I found out through Vince. That's how I found out.
Wasn't it a Raw? Because it was the day after a pay-per-view, I believe, because he didn't show up for the pay-per-view for the ECW title versus CM Punk. So it's okay.
It was Monday Night Raw. Yeah.
So I found out at the time I was dating somebody, and she was working at the rec center during the summer.
Okay.
And I was going there to pick her up or whatever, and just check out one of the game, Little League games or whatever, while she was finishing up her stuff. And her dad called and was like, McMahon's on TV. He said Benoit and his wife and his kid are dead. And this was supposed to be during the McMahon funeral.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the death of Vince McMahon.
Yeah. Which, man, you could not time out a death worse than a fake funeral. But yeah, I remember because the day before I was at Fox and Hounds, the restaurant in Parma.
Yeah.
With my buddies. I think my buddy's mom took us because she would take us at that time to go see the pay-per-views because you weren't allowed in under the age of 21 on a Sunday without somebody over the age of 21 with you or something like that. So that's when we thought it was kind of weird, like, oh, Benoit missed a show. That's not, that's not like him. But I found out through the phone call. Later, went home, turned on the TV, and saw him wrestling. They were showing the Royal Rumble match when he entered at number 1 and won the whole thing.
Yes,
because it was a tribute show.
Yeah,
that's how I really found out. Because I was reading the dirt sheets at the time. I was on Pro Wrestling News, ProWrestling.com, WrestleZone, and for whatever reason that day, I didn't check a single one of those. So this completely caught me off guard. I called my buddy Steve, and I was like, hey, man, did you hear about Benoit dying? He goes, no, that can't be right. And then he turned it on right around the same time I did, and then he called me. He's like, dude, it's messed up. Yeah.
It was – I was and that's, I think we ordered the pay-per-view that night of the Sunday that he went missing. Me and my dad, we'd always get pay-per-views at my parents' house. My dad would buy it and we'd, watch or whatever. I'd have a girlfriend if I had one over and we'd watch shows and stuff. I remember exactly where I was when I found out. I actually found out on Monday Night Raw. We turned it on. I was with my high school girlfriend at the time, and Vince comes on and is like, tonight we were going to continue with the story of Vince McMahon being dead after the explosion of last week.
But in real life.
And you just go, oh, fuck. Like my jaw dropped because I'm 18 at the time because it was 2007. Yes.
It was 2007. Yeah. Cause I was 19.
Late summer of 2007, I believe, was when it was. I was at my parents' house in Mentor, Ohio, and I had my high school girlfriend with me, and that happened, and it was almost like this, like, what the fuck did he just say? Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, it was one of those moments in time where you're like, Chris Benoit? Chris Ben fucking Wah.
Yeah.
Just died. Like we didn't know that he had done what he had done until I think it was Friday or something like that. I think.
Well, we found out later that night. Actually, CNN started reporting it right before Raw went off the air.
Yeah.
Because the next day they did ECW because they would film SmackDown the same day as they would shoot ECW live.
Yes.
And McMahon had to go on TV and be like, last night we celebrated a man who we found out was a monster.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was when they opened up on that episode of Dark Side of the Ring the way they did, talking about that whole thing. Yeah. It was insane, man. Like, and I want to get your opinion before I give mine on the episode as a whole. And it's one of those things where we talk about it so much, as wrestling fans. And I will put the camera on you, my friend, give your opinion on the episode, and then I will interject as we go along. Excuse me for the burp, my friends.
Yeah. Both episodes I thought were done very well. I thought they were great, informative. I remember watching that CNN documentary, or not the news thing that they did for like an hour, and they even had Cena at the time, and they tried to mix the words around to make it sound like Cena was on steroids. And I remember his dad talking about the journal that he had written for Eddie. So in that first episode, when Vicky was like, "Oh, so Nancy and I got him a journal so he can write letters to Eddie," that blew my mind, because I hadn't thought about that for years.
It was, and I'm going to stop you real quick. And when I saw that part of the documentary, I think like a lot of wrestling fans, there was a bit of a chill that went down our spines collectively when we all watched it on our own time, to really see how messed up the loss of Eddie Guerrero was on Chris Benoit. But continue, my friend.
But yeah, I thought it was really well done. I feel like they should have tried a little bit harder to get Kevin Sullivan to be a part of it, and to be like, "Hey, we're not going to make this a hit piece on you."
He did address that with Jim Cornette, I believe. In his interview. You're gonna that'll be the follow up to this episode for those people. Will be Dan. We'll keep the camera on him just because it's about Dan here. He'll be on our next episode where we talk about this. It'll be Dan is going to listen to the Jim Cornette interview with Kevin Sullivan. I've listened to it, but Dan will definitely be listening to it. And we'll talk about that as sort of a follow up piece to this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I found there were a lot of things I found interesting about it too. Actually getting the officer's account of what happened as he walked in and what he saw was intriguing. There were several times I had to pause the television, get up, and walk away. Like I couldn't bear the story all in one sitting each night. It was hard for me. I was a big Benoit fan, like you. I think I've maybe tried to watch a few more of his matches than maybe you have. I don't get that same joy that I used to. WrestleMania 20 was such a great moment that is sadly just tainted.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 21, was that the first Money in the Bank match? I think so.
Yes.
Where he sold that shoulder injury.
Yeah.
And you thought it was real. Everyone thought it was real. And the way how he climbed up the ladder with it limping, and the way how he did the headbutt, and he kept the arm to the side the whole time, to the very end where Edge hit him with the chair to the shoulder, and you thought, and Edge being the worst bad guy in the world at the time, he got Matt Hardy fired. He's screwing everyone over, and to see him win like that just added so much more heat. I thought what Jericho said at the very end was incredible, that if you would tell him that in death he would have almost killed the only thing that he loved professionally, I think it was hard. It was hard, and I feel bad for his son David Benoit. I know that he wants to try to get into wrestling. It sucks because he's an innocent in all this, and no one's ever going to actually jump on that. AEW might eventually, but it's not going to be a long-term thing.
All right. I agree with you in some capacity on that for sure. Watching both episodes, I can understand why you felt the way you did, is because like you, I was a big Chris Benoit fan. Like I got into him in WCW. I was completely ignorant, well, except for one match with him when he was, I think it was Wild Pegasus against Jushin Thunder Liger that they showed on WCW television.
Yeah.
I saw that was my first Chris Benoit match that I knew of. And then when he came to WCW, because I watched everything, I was that kid who like this is put this in my face. Like I like what's going on with Dan right now. Put that in my face. That's what WCW is Dan Brown putting some lovely food in their face.
Starburst.
It's Starburst. Then it's even better because then that's ECW. But like I loved Chris Benoit. One of my best friends in the world, his name's Mitch. We call him Dr. Professor Mitch. I hope to make him a character on the show one day. And with the power of Zoom, that will probably happen. Thank you, Jesus. But, excuse me again, I looked up to Chris Benoit because he was a smaller guy. I've always been an average. I'm 5'9", so it's like seeing a guy like him just beat the shit out of guys. It was like watching, like they always say, it's a superhero. And it's the thing with, you got to just kind of look at him as that way. But knowing everything that we know, knowing all the stuff that, Dark Side of the Ring already, showed that we've known for the past 10 years or so more about the Chris Benoit incident. I had an easier time really watching this than a lot of other people because when I found out that it's selfish, but when I found out that he killed one of my favorite managers of all time, who was his wife, who I didn't know. Again, I didn't have internet until I was like in college. I'm going to admit that. I was that kid who, when other kids would be like, dude, you don't read the dirt sheets? I'm like, no, I don't have the money. Like, I love what I can pay for and hold in my hands. Like, that's what I love, is the things that I buy. And that's like, Chris Benoit was somebody I bought. Woman was one of my favorite ballets of all time. She's up there with Precious, Sunshine, Baby Doll, Dark Journey. She's at the low end. But I mean, when I found out that he was married to a woman and he killed her, it sort of made it easy for me to be like, you took another performer from us. That was something that I thought about, and I've thought about for many years, is like, I don't care about Kevin Sullivan. I don't care. I care about the kids. I care about the kids. I was going to say I don't care about the kids, but I do. I want that. This is going on fucking YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. So, but
right, Hyclak doesn't like kids.
Oh my God, how did this happen? We took him to a camp where he could be with kids all day. It's one of those deals though, man, where you just look at it as like he took one of the best female performers ever to go into the world and just snuff that flame out. Yes, he was a great professional wrestler. He was an amazing athlete, but like New Jack said in the most hated people in professional wrestling on kayfabe commentary, shout out to Sean Oliver, because you gave me a shout out on your podcast. So thank you, buddy. But it's with the whole thing around his neck and leaving because it wouldn't leave a fucking scar, because it wouldn't actually do a lot more damage than it would have in the thing. But yeah, doing what he did to woman and what he did to his own son. I'm on Team New Jack with that, to Chris Benoit. I hate to say that. I want his son to be in professional wrestling because I think, honestly, we need more lineages in professional wrestling. That way, the tree of wrestling can grow from people who have been around it so long and understand where it's going. Honestly, I don't think he can be a wrestler. I'd love to see him as because of how thin he is, I'd love to see him as a Downtown Bruno or Harvey Wimpleman kind of character, where he's not completely wimpy, but you can believe that he's a manager more than a professional wrestler.
Sure.
And Nancy's sister was amazing. She made me cry a few times.
She was outstanding.
It was crazy, dude. Like I find it kind of awesome at the idea that they did this documentary, and it has not changed my opinion on Chris Benoit as a person. It has not given me any kind of different feeling towards the incident. As a wrestling fan and as somebody who, and you as well, I mean, you can attest, we just gave our stories of it. We witnessed this as it happened rather than, a lot of people reading about it and like making their own opinions. As we both, like many wrestling fans who are going to be watching this video as well, have said, it's about the idea of just retelling the story for the ages with this one. And to be honest, it's one of their best. It is. How many snowflakes would you give Dark Side of the Ring Chris Benoit on Viceland?
How many snowflakes?
Snowflakes, as in stars, sir. I have an inner joke with my friends that's now going to be a part of the thing. We're going to call stars snowflakes.
5 out of 5.
I'm definitely in agreement with you, my friend.
I haven't seen a Dark Side of the Ring that's less than a 3.5 yet.
I agree. I fully agree with you, man. This whole thing has just shown that, these kind of stories deserve to be told and not just be like, that's that wrestling stuff. It's like, these are legit things, and they really need to, keep going with these. I can't wait to watch the Owen Hart one. That one we will definitely discuss. And we will have follow-up, or we will have episodes for the New Jack one and the Brawl for All. Because,
can't wait to talk Brawl for All.
Oh, me too, dude. That's going to be one of our best episodes. That'll be coming out in a few weeks. Both of them will be within a week of each other on this show that you will be able to see on either of our YouTube channels, and then hopefully somewhere down the line on another platform. And we will be talking about that in the coming weeks as well. You will be hearing about it in the coming weeks. It's the Big Fat Podcast Network. We're going to be doing some great shit with that. So I want you guys to follow us and make sure that you stay up to date with that, and go to Big Fat Podcast or Big Fat Media Co. on Instagram for all the stuffs. That's where we have a lot of our posts about new episodes and everything like that. You can go at Side Angle Pad for the lovely episodes that me and Dan Brown produce here on the Side Angle Wrestling Podcast. And Dan, we are closing down this episode after talking about the Dark Side of the Ring episode. It was a good episode. I liked it. It was great. It was fantastic.
It's
huge, bigger fall. It was a bigger fall from grace than Owen Hart. I'm telling you. Oh, I bought that pay-per-view. I can say whatever I want. But we will be back with another episode where we will be starting episodes 1 and 2 of WSX Wrestling Society X.
I've been so excited to talk about this.
Yes, and that will be up alongside of this episode of the Chris Benoit Dark Side of the Ring. You can find those now on Viceland. I believe it's on their website. And it's also, there's some ingenuitive people online. So you can pretty much just search the Chris Benoit episode. We recommend it for sure if you're a professional wrestling fan, and you're a younger professional wrestling fan, especially if you're 15, 16 and you heard your older brothers talking about it, or you've heard your mom and dad talk about it because they were kids when they were in high school when it happened. It's still crazy to think 13 years later, ironically, on the unlucky 13, they do documentary on Viceland called Dark Side of the Ring. And of course, Chris Benoit has to be part of it.
And and just one more final thing about Chris Benoit here before we say goodbye. They talked about it on the Viceland doc, and a number of people have said it before. You look at his career, you look at Eddie Guerrero's, both performers tragically taken too soon in their lifetime.
Yep.
One is treasured as a hero, and the other, like Jericho said, you can't even say the name.
Yep, you can't even.
And just it crushed it, because I loved watching those two wrestle each other. I absolutely loved it. And there was if you get a chance, there's somewhere on YouTube, like the WWE, like commentators, like they're on mic, but they're being recorded, and this stuff didn't mean to get out.
Yeah.
At some point when they went to commercial, or when they were filming for commercial for SmackDown, you heard Michael Cole and Taz talk to each other like, man, I could watch a Benoit Guerrero match every day for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And unfortunately, those matches ended too soon. And unfortunately, one of them, CTE or not, tainted their own reputation. So do it what you want, guys.
It's a tragic story, and I'm glad we got to be able to discuss this and give it, the proper due that it deserves, for how good of an episode it was. And Dan, now that the episode is over and the music will almost be getting ready to play, what is your social media handles?
xdanbrown on Instagram and Twitter. And check out the website, danbrowncomedy.com, for all the shows that have been canceled for the coronavirus.
Yay, coronavirus. It's the reason we use Zoom. Yeah. I am Ray Hyclak. I appreciate you guys watching. You can see me on all my social medias at Ray Hyclak. And that's usually where all my corona canceled dates are posted. So go see those. And also my 15-minute video on YouTube, Kind of a Big Deal, live from Willoughby. It's a good video, not my best, but I like it. Actually, no, it is my best. I'm not going to look at it. I had a good idea. I'm going to make a pine box. That's what I'm going to do for Jerry Blackwell, yes.
Don't. I recorded set and Willoughby. Don't, motherfucker. I'm a free bird.
Don't mean to toot. I don't allow me to be the first one to toot my own horn, but toot. I am the best.
Baby. You go out there, you do your set, you get funky like a monkey, baby. You do your thing, and the American Dream, Dusty Road, is proud of you. I love you.
The Polish dream is almost dead, Daddy. The Polish dream for you. You may be on hard times, baby, but you will get through this. You know what I'm saying, baby.
The only difference is when you're doing your set and you're like, I'm reaching out, my hand, touching you. People scream in anger and fear.
I'm the one getting knives soaked in piss stabbed into my knee. It's like, goddamn, it's already kind of like pussy. What's going on? Oh no, Blackjack Mulligan knee. No.
They were stabbing you before you went on stage.
Oh God, yeah. Like, you remember how in the WWE documentary about Dallas, how Kevin Von Erich was talking about how you had to like fight, or like women were like kissing you. Like, everybody's just, I could just see me walking down an aisle and everybody just going like. Well, on that note, my friends, thank you for watching. And we will be back next week with an episode for WSX episode 1 and 2 Wrestling Society. Stay tuned.
Cue fire.
Really big explosions. Yeah.